Thank you, Cindy. And first of all, we can get rid of the very special pilot because I'm just one of the guys. So, as you pilots are pretty aware of. First of all, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. Are we okay, Bruce? Okay. A little bit about myself real quickly, and then talk to you a little bit about NASA, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but some of the mission directorates that you may not be familiar with. And we'll talk a little bit about the airplane and the mission. This is just a hero picture. My wife had to have a hero picture here, so all pilots have hero pictures, so this is just mine. But basically, I was born and raised in the St. Louis area, learned to fly when I was in high school. In fact, I'll do that. Learned to fly in high school, as many of you did, I'm sure. And then went to the Air Force Reserves, flew in the reserves for 22 years at Scott Air Force Base to the C-9 Nightingale, which was a flying hospital. Great mission in the Air Force. We flew 8 stops a day and picked up wounded all around the world and took them to hospitals around the world. So my job was to save people when I was in the Air Force. Got hired with United in 1985, retired from them in 2018 to age 65, as you are aware of. You have to quit at age 65. But I flew with NASA for about 3 years while I was at United. So that's kind of a little bit about my background here. Let's see, there we go. So let's talk a little bit about NASA, first of all, and then we'll kind of go into specifics. I'm sure you're all aware what NASA does. Everybody knows the astronauts, and they're the famous people, and the rest of us are research pilots, and we don't have the notoriety that the astronauts do. But NASA actually has 5 mission directorates, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, but 2 of them are aeronautics and science. And that's the ones that really we don't get the press coverage that the astronauts do. They're the famous guys in NASA. What SOFIA does is, SOFIA is just one of the missions that in the Aeronautics and Science Directorate that NASA held. And you might say, well, what is SOFIA? SOFIA stands for the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. And what it does, it's just an airborne observatory, the only one in the world. There was one of these airplanes in the whole world. That's it. We were it. And people said, well, why do we want an airborne observatory that ran about $1 million a night to operate the airplane? With the James Webb Space Telescope, it's done such a wonderful job that it has basically put SOFIA out of business. I don't know if you followed SOFIA at all, but SOFIA retired in October, I think it was October, November of 2022, when it flew to the Pima Air Museum, where it will sit, I guess, for the rest of its life. In fact, my wife and I were just out there the other day to see it, and it's out in the hot sun, and got to lose all the nice paint and the polish that the mechanics put in it for years. But if you get a chance to go see it, it's well worth the drive. In fact, just the museum is well worth the drive. But the reason that SOFIA existed was there are plenty of ground observatories around the world, as pictured here. But you can imagine if anything gets between the ground observatory and the celestial body that they're trying to observe, such as clouds, you just all of a sudden the astronomers who have booked that observatory, they may lose all of their observing time. So in the mid-60s, NASA came up with an idea to produce a flying observatory. Started at about 65, I think it was. They had a little Lear 25 with a little 12-inch telescope. They got a Convair 990 that they operated for a while. The latest one was the Kuiper C-141A, and some gentleman up here just showed me a picture that he had. It's still up at NASA Ames. That went out of business like 74 time frame, I think. But the astronomers really wanted to get an airplane with a large diameter telescope. Well, what's the biggest airplane out there was the 747. So when it flew back in 1969, astronomers started thinking, well, let's just modify this 747. Well, that didn't happen until later. We'll talk about that. But that's the reason that SOFIA exists, is because you get obscurations, you get rain, you get all sorts of things that obscure the astronomers, their ability to observe the atmosphere. Part of what NASA does is, and it's again not very widely publicized, is we have an aeronautics mission directorate. And maybe before I could talk about that, let's talk about a little bit about the type of pilots that fly for NASA. I'm not one of the special pilots, but thank you very much for that. But the other guys that I flew with really are. NASA has, in addition to the astronauts, which we all know about, they've got research test pilots, which, as I understand it, have to be a TPS graduate, a test pilot school graduate. They fly the pointy airplanes. They do a lot of the flight tests, and I'll show you some pictures here in just a little bit. I was what's called a research pilot. I was specifically a science research pilot. We specialized in astrophysics. But also NASA has a lot of missions that do research just in our own atmosphere. I'll show you a picture here. This is a DC-8 that flies. In fact, it still flies. They're actually getting rid of this airplane and going to a 777, as I understand it, pretty soon. But this airplane still flies, and it does a lot of atmospheric research. It will go up and it'll sample any pollution in the air. It will fly up and down the coast of California. It will look at fault lines and how they move. It flies all around the world, actually.